See how it works? Okie dokie.
It's a
Well, welcome back. Glad to see you guys here. We're gonna start on the last part of the Spirit's book. It's book 4. Spirit's book is divided into different, they call them different books. They're like these huge chapters. And we're going to go into book 4, which starts with earthly joys and sorrows. It's the 4th book of the Spirit's book, Hopes and Consolations, chapter 1. Okay? And I lost. Here it is. Okay. Under earthly sorrows, under earthly joys and sorrows, there are 6 sections to it. The first one is happiness and unhappiness. That's the one we'll be talking about today. Second one is loss of those we love, disappointments, ingratitude, blighted affections, antipathetic unions, fear of death, and weariness of life or suicide. So those are all the sections that are in book 4 of the Spirit's book, written by Allan Kardec. So at the beginning, it starts off this way. And these are the questions that Allan Kardec had posed to the spirits. And basically, these are the answers they gave us. It is not possible to enjoy perfect happiness on this earth. Okay, I think that's it. The meeting's over. That's pretty much what we're talking about. So that sounds kind of, I don't know, gloomy, kind of sad. It's like, no, sorry, you're not meant to be happy. Well, we are meant to be happy, but not the kind of happiness we want or the one we expect. So it's not possible then to have perfect happiness, is what they said. Remember, that key word is perfect happiness, not just happiness in general. Corporal life is appointed to us as a trial or expiation. It is up to us to live as happy a life as we possibly can. So what? You mean that other guy over there made me angry and it's not his fault? It's not his fault. It's our fault for letting him make us angry. It's not his fault. And so you see, how then can we shift? It's hard to shift the responsibility on who's to blame for my anger, or who's to blame for my sorrow, for my unhappiness. Who's to blame? Is it everyone else around me, or is it me? So I think the power has been given to us. Okay? Everyone wants happiness. No one wants pain, is what it says here. But you can't have a rainbow without a little rain. So you got to have a little bit of tribulation. You got to have some problems and things that we have to work through. Why? Well, they're for us.
life.
For our progress, for our spiritual progress. Okay, so let's go through this chart together here. Are you happy? Let's just say that we say yes. Okay, then keep doing whatever you're doing because you're happy. We're done, right? That's really good. Are you happy? Let's just say we say no, I'm not happy. Well, do you want to be happy? Do you want to be happy? Well, let's just say we say yes, we want to be happy. All right, welcome. So then change something. What? No, they have to change. No, you have to change. Change something. Are you happy? If the answer is no. Do you want to be happy? What if you say no? I don't want to be happy. Well then, keep doing whatever it is you're doing. You just stay there. Now, Noreda, I don't know, in your career, you've come across people, as a counselor, that don't really want to be happy, no matter how much you talk to them.
Yeah.
They just want to stay in that rut. But then they want people to comfort them, console them. Ay, me duele, this hurts, I can't, no. Well, then you need to do this to get better. No, I don't want to do that. Well, then do you want to get better? Do you want to feel happy? No, I'm fine. Well, they won't say no, they won't admit it, right?
Right.
Just kind of like just continue like that. So I thought that was a neat, interesting chart. Any questions about the chart? Yeah, any comments?
It's true.
Yeah. So we can get stuck really going through all this in a kind of a negative thinking, and this negative thinking can cause unhappiness, right? So since we're responsible for our own happiness, let's go ahead and learn a little bit more about how we think. What is it that goes through, what is our thinking process? That's okay. What is our thinking process there? How does everything happen in our brain. This is Dr. Allison Ledgerwood, a social psychologist. She spoke on TED Talks. You all heard of TED Talks? She had a little brief talk here. It's just like a 9-minute thing. And she explains to us what it is about getting stuck in the negatives, in the negative thoughts. Because we all have negative thoughts. Everybody goes through them. But we can get stuck on these negative thoughts and they can affect our life. She also offers tips on how to get unstuck from those negative thoughts. So let's hear what Dr. Ledgerwood has to say on this.
I can see the difference there.
It's okay.
Hi everyone. Gosh, I wish I could dance, but I can't and you really don't want me to. So instead, I thought I would talk a little today about how people think. I'm fascinated by this question. I'm a social psychologist, which basically means I'm a professional people watcher. So this is what I do. I try to figure out how humans think and how we might be able to think better. And here's something I noticed a few years ago about how I seem to think. Here's a typical week in my life, which usually seems to revolve entirely around publishing papers. So here I am in the maximum of my artistic abilities as a stick figure, going along at baseline, and a paper gets accepted. I get this rush, this blip of happiness, and then I'm back to baseline by about lunchtime. A few days later, a paper might get rejected, and that feels pretty awful. And I wait for that blip to end, but somehow I just can't stop thinking about it. And here's the craziest part. Even if another paper gets accepted the next day, well, that's nice, but somehow I can't get that pesky rejection out of my head. So what is going on here? Why does a failure seem to stick in our minds so much longer than a success? Well, together with my colleague Amber Boydston in the Political Science Department, I started thinking about this question of, do our minds get stuck in the negatives? We all know intuitively that there are different ways of thinking about things. The same glass, the saying goes, can be seen as half full or half empty. And there's a lot of research in the social sciences showing that depending on how you describe the glass to people, as half full or half empty, it changes how they feel about it. So if you describe the glass as half full, this is called a gain frame because you're focusing on what's gained, then people like it. But if you describe the same glass as half empty, a loss frame, then people don't like it. But we wondered, what happens when you try to switch from thinking about it one way to thinking about it another way? Can people shift back and forth, or do they get stuck in one way of thinking about it? Does one of these labels, in other words, tend to stick more in the mind? Well, to investigate this question, we conducted a simple experiment. We told participants in our experiment about a new surgical procedure, and we randomly assigned them to one of two conditions. For participants in the first condition, the first group, we described the surgical procedure in terms of gains. We said it had a 70% success rate. And for participants in the second group, we described the procedure in terms of losses. We said it had a 30% failure rate. So it's the exact same procedure. We're just focusing people's attention on the part of the glass that's full or the part of the glass that's empty. Perhaps unsurprisingly, people like the procedure when it's described as having a 70% success rate, and they don't like it when it's described as having a 30% failure rate. But then we added a twist. We told participants in the first group, you could think of this as a 30% failure rate, and now they don't like it anymore. They've changed their minds. And we told participants in the second group, you could think of this as a 70% success rate, but unlike the first group, they stuck with their initial opinion. They seemed to be stuck in the initial loss frame that they saw at the beginning of the study. We conducted another experiment. This time we told participants about the current governor of an important state who was running for re-election against his opponent. We again had two groups of participants, and we described the current governor's track record to them in one of two ways. We said that when the current governor took office, statewide budget cuts were expected to affect about 10,000 jobs. And then half the participants read that under the current governor's leadership, 40% of these jobs had been saved. And they like the current governor. They think he's doing a great job. The rest of the participants read that under the current governor's leadership, 60% of these jobs had been lost. and they don't like the current governor. They think he's doing a terrible job. But then, once more, we added a twist. For participants in the first group, we reframed the information in terms of losses. And now they didn't like the current governor anymore. And for participants in the second group, we reframed the information in terms of gains. But just like in the first study, this didn't seem to matter. People in this group still didn't like the current governor. So notice what this means. Once the loss frame gets in there, it sticks. People can't go back to thinking about jobs saved once they've thought about jobs lost. So in both of these scenarios, actually, the current governor gets ousted in favor of his opponent. Well, at this point, we were getting curious. Why does this happen? Could it be that it's actually mentally harder for people to convert from losses to gains than it is for them to go from gains to losses? So we conducted a third study to test how easily people could convert from one frame to another. This time, we told participants, imagine there's been an outbreak of an unusual disease and 600 lives are at stake. And we asked participants in one group, if 100 lives are saved, how many will be lost? And we asked participants in the other group, if 100 lives are lost, how many will be saved? So everyone just has to calculate 600 minus 100 and come up with the answer of 500. But whereas people in one group have to convert from gains to losses in order to do that, people in the second group have to convert from losses to gains. We timed how long it took them to solve this simple math problem. And what we found was that when people had to convert from gains to losses, they could solve the problem quite quickly. It took them about 7 seconds on average. But when they had to convert from losses to gains, well, now it took them far longer, almost 11 seconds. So this suggests that once we think about something as a loss, that way of thinking about it tends to stick in our heads and to resist our attempts to change it. What I take away from this research and from related research is that our view of the world has a fundamental tendency to tilt toward the negative. It's pretty easy to go from good to bad, but far harder to shift from bad to good. We literally have to work harder to see the upside of things. And this matters. So think about the economy. Here's economic well-being from 2007 to 2010. And you can see it tanked, just like we all remember. And then by late 2010, it had recovered by most objective measures. But here's consumer confidence over the same time period. You can see it tanks right along with the economy, but then it seems to get stuck. Instead of rebounding with the economy itself, consumers seem to be psychologically stuck back there in the recession. So oddly then, it may take more effort to change our minds about how the economy is doing than to change the economy itself. On a more personal level, what this research means to me is that you have to work to see the upside. Literally, this takes work. This takes effort. And you can practice this. You can train your mind to do this better. There's research out of UC Davis showing that just writing for a few minutes each day about things that you're grateful for can dramatically boost your happiness and well-being and even your health. We can also rehearse good news and share it with others. We tend to think, right, that misery loves company, that venting will help get rid of our negative emotions, that we'll feel better if we just talk about how terrible our day was. And so we talk, and we talk, and we talk about the boss who's driving us crazy, and the friend who never called us back, and the meeting at work where every little thing that could go wrong did. But we forget to talk about the good stuff. And yet that's exactly where our minds need the most practice. So my husband, who has this disconcerting habit of listening to what I say other people should do and then pointing out that, technically speaking, I'm a person too, has taken to listening to me for about 2 minutes on days when I come home all grumpy and complaining about everything. And he listens and he says, okay, but what happened today that was good? And so I tell him about the student who came up to me after class with this really interesting, insightful question. And I tell him about the friend who emailed me out of the blue this morning just to say hello. And somewhere in the telling, I start to smile. And I start to think that maybe my day was pretty decent after all. I think we can also work in our communities to focus on the upside. We can be more aware that bad tends to stick. One mean comment can stick with somebody all day, all week even. And bad tends to propagate itself, right? Somebody snaps at you and you snap back, and you snap at the next guy too. But what if the next time somebody snapped at you, you forgave them? What if the next time you had a really grumpy waitress, you left her an extra large tip? Our minds may be built to look for negative information and to hold on to it. But we can also retrain our minds if we put some effort into it and start to see that the glass may be a little more full than we initially thought. Thank you.
So what do y'all think? Our thoughts. We tend to get stuck in the negative. That's what all the research points to. It pointed to eventually just getting to that point. Oops. Yeah. So you see, a lot of our happiness depends on ourselves. Do you want to be happy? Or are you going to stay stuck in that thing? Knowing that we tend to think on the negative all the time, we can now go out in the world and say, you know what, this takes effort. I'm going to have to make the time to think in my mind that I'm going to think happier thoughts, that I'm going to think more positively about things, rather than always dwell on the negative. You see, and all the research that she pointed to here shows that no matter what, our brain is sort of wired that way somehow, so that our spirit can learn to manipulate the brain, to be able to say, okay, whoa, I'm getting these negative vibes, these negative thoughts right now, let's shift it. And it's not that easy to do. It takes time and it takes effort. And that's really her point here, is that you have to be conscious about the fact that we tend to think about negative things more than positive things. Okay? That's kind of humanity. That's kind of what we're living right now. So as we leave here, we can practice maybe training ourselves, and even with our friends, family, our spouse, asking each other, what good happened today? How are things? Notice what she said. I started to sort of smile as I was talking about the good things that happened. That alone brings you good feelings and good thoughts. Okay? Yeah, the negative things are going to happen to us every day. Bad stuff happens all the time. That's why we're here, to learn spiritually, to grow, to be able to deal with these things. All right? Any questions or comments on that? What y'all think of about how she described all these things? Pretty interesting?
Yeah, but my favorite part was that she had it wasn't just like, these are the findings, like, oh well, we're negative. It was like, we can practice, we can try to change that. That was sort of...
That's the main thing she's trying to say.
Yeah, I thought that was great, that she had like, there's like hope. We don't, just because we are inclined to think negative doesn't mean like, oh well, too bad.
That's right. That's right. Very good. Okay, so humanity then is slowly making progress. We're actually growing. Growing spiritually. We're getting better, morally speaking. Someday, we'll enjoy much greater happiness on earth than we do today. So there is that kind of hope to look forward to. And that's what they tell us in Spiritism, that things are getting better. Yet, how many people do you hear every day that always talk about how horrible things are and how much better things were back in the past? Things were much better. They were much simpler back then. Now it's just terrible. It's all chaos. But that's, if you really look at statistics and you look at all the things that we're doing, we're actually improving. Not only materially, but also spiritually. We're making, maybe slowly, maybe too slow for us to notice, but it's happening. It's out there. We should look for the positive. In the meantime, we've been given full control over our own personal happiness. Okay? All we have to do is obey the law of God. Sounds really easy, right? And we just talked about the law of God these past, 6-7 months? That's what we've been talking about in Spiritism. So only then can we enjoy the greatest level of happiness compatible with this planet. Now, compatible with this planet, in other words, we're here on this planet, and it's not meant to give us absolute pure happiness. It's meant to teach us something. It's our big giant classroom. So we're learning. When you're learning, sometimes you go through these little painful, things. And that's what we're doing. We all experience them. Now you might say little painful things. Some of us are going through some major big things. We are. But how we handle them is whether we're going to benefit and learn from the experiences that we're having here on this earth. God put us here for a reason. The Bible says, but even more blessed are all who hear the word of God and put it into practice. Okay? So the word of God is the knowledge of the correct means to live. So let's follow the law of God and do the best we can with it on our daily lives. Okay, we're each at different levels of happiness at any given time. And we all know that. We've experienced it. And one day I might be happier than you, and then vice versa. So we're all different. Furthermore, what one may see as happiness can be absolute misery for another. So happiness then is relative. Because what makes you happy doesn't necessarily make me happy, and vice versa. So then the question is there a common standard of happiness? This is what Allan Kardec asked in the Spirit's book. Is there like a common level to where everybody is going to be happy? Well, regarding to the material existence, the standard would be possession of the necessities of life. The necessities of life, food, water, a place to live, okay, those things. That's kind of common. That would bring happiness to everybody. Maybe not the absolute happiness you want, but at least you'll be able to survive. Regarding our moral existence, the standard is having a good conscience and believing in a future life. Having a good conscience, that's not easy. How many of us here feel we're very clear of our conscience and we know we've never done anything bad? Anybody? No hands are up, right? We don't have an absolute clear conscience. We don't. But imagine working towards getting as good a conscience as we can. I mean, that's kind of a good, neat goal to have. When I die, I want to have a clear conscience. What does that mean, having a clear conscience or having a good conscience? It means basically your relationships with each other, our relationships. That's what it means. Am I still fighting with my brother? Am I still upset at my mom, at my dad? Am I still angry at people who have done bad things to me? Have I forgiven them? Or am I holding on to all these grudges? How can we continue living on this way, holding on to that heavy baggage and carrying it with us everywhere we go? And then trying to dump it on other people sometimes, because we get angry at other people. We have this thing with us and then we're like shooting back at others. So we're like giving all this negativity to people rather than trying to be as forgiving as we possibly can and clear our conscience. We'll be happier. Believing in a future life is another standard. That means that we have hope, that we have faith in our future life, that there's something better beyond this existence, that there's something more beyond, that death isn't the end of us, that life continues, our spirit continues to live, your personality continues to exist after your body has perished. Having that kind of faith, a reasoned faith, a faith that tells us, oh yeah, well, we have life everlasting, sure. Well, what exactly does that mean? Life everlasting. That means you, your personality, yourself, you continue to live. You continue to exist in the spirit world. So we have that kind of hope to look forward to, and that helps us give that level of happiness, in a sense, a standard that we can go by, and then build on that. All right? Any comments? Questions? Pretty good so far. All right. So given the diversity of circumstances under which we live, the necessities of life, what is important, right? Means different things to different people. What is absolutely essential in your life? What do you have to have? Well, some are going to give different answers than others. Our material ideas, our prejudices, ambitions, blur the line between what we want and what we need. Our own pride gets in the way. I gotta have that new car. Why? Because it's so cool. But you already have a car. I know, but that one's much better. I'm gonna sell this one, I'm gonna get another. So that kind of ego that we have, yeah, it lives in us and it'll take us to places that we don't want to go. will start to feel unhappy as a result. So a man who loses Wi-Fi connection can feel like he's been thrown back into the dark ages. Have you ever felt that? I have. I'm at home, all of a sudden everything goes out, I have no Wi-Fi. And then it's just like, I might as well just get 2 sticks and try to make fire or something, because I feel like I cannot exist without my internet. Can't exist. All right? And then the quote from the Spirit's book says, he appears to himself to lack the necessities of life. That's what I would probably feel. No Wi-Fi, I lack everything. I don't have anything in life anymore. But is he really so much to be pitied, while beside him so many others are dying of cold and hunger and have not even a place to lay their head? So let's put things in perspective, and let's consider what we lose compared to what other people don't even have. And when we step back and look at the big picture, we realize, wow, I have quite a bit. For starters, we have each other. That's one thing. Do you have relationships with other people? These are so important. Okay. Bad things happen to us. They just do. We inflict most of them upon ourselves, and the rest are beyond our control. But then you say, but why would God let me experience bad things? God is all loving, all powerful. God, why are you making me suffer? And why are things happening that weren't even my fault? They're beyond my control. But yet bad things keep happening to me, and I didn't cause them. How then do we answer that? What does the Spiritism answer? Yes, sir?
Reincarnate.
Reincarnation. Thank you. It's very simple. One word. Reincarnation. We've existed previously in many lives. And in our previous existences, we've done good things and we've done some bad things. And then as we reviewed our life in the spirit world before reincarnating again, we decided, along with our spiritual guides, our higher help, we decided that, you know what, this particular life is best for us for our spiritual growth. So then things happen to us. How do we respond to them? That's our trial. That's what we have to practice. Okay? Can we protect ourselves from these misfortunes that occur beyond our control? Is there any way we can protect it? Our spiritual progress depends on how we deal with these constant struggles in life. So the short answer, I guess, is no. The short answer is no. There's no, things are going to happen to us. But we live in this material world where things happen. Sometimes your car will break down in the middle of the road. You don't anticipate that. You don't plan it. But there it is. It just happens. And then you have to do what? Well, you have to deal with it if you want to get home. You have to find a way to deal with it or ask for help. What happens to us spiritually when we feel so down and hurt? Do we try to fix it like we do a car? Can we deal with it head on? Or do we complain and blame others or God for what happens to us? How we react that's the level of how much we grow. Do we deal with it? Do we get the help we need so that we can solve the problems that we're facing? That's what's going to matter in the spiritual realm. That's what matters. Not the one who starts throwing out all kinds of obscenities, bad words, and kicking things and having these little anger fits, which we see many times. Or get after somebody else, blaming them for our afflictions and the things that happen to us. Spirit's book goes on to say, but you may always derive consolation from the hope of a happier future, provided you do what is needed to obtain it. Provided you do what is needed to obtain it. Okay? So there's a future life, a happier life. The earth itself is going to be happier too, but it's not going to be the absolute perfection of happiness. Okay? It's not, because it's kind of a world of trials and expiations, and we're trying to improve here. So we're learning in this giant classroom. So here's a question number 925 of the Spirit's book. Why does God so often bestow the gifts of fortune on men who do not appear to have deserved such a favor? Yes, sir. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
So why do people seem to be luckier than others? Or they get better stuff than others? or they have all kind of cool material stuff and they don't even work for it. Some people are just born into a rich family and they already own all kinds of cool stuff. How come you didn't have to work for it and I do? Okay, those are the kinds of things that Allan Kardec is asking. Yes.
When you deserve it, God will give you the opportunity.
God will give you the
to come
opportunity.
into that kind of family.
Absolutely. Yes. When you get to that level of being humble, of being helpful to others, and unselfish, those are attributes that we're trying to achieve here. Wealth appears to be a favor to those who see only the present, and there's where reincarnation comes in. You only see today, or you only see this lifetime. That's it. But you must remember that fortune is often a more dangerous trial than poverty, and we've discussed this in previous meetings. That being rich is possibly even more difficult than being poor, because what you do with that money is going to determine a lot about your character.
A lot of rich people end up killing themselves.
Well, there's a lot of unhappiness no matter what economic level you're in. There's unhappiness everywhere, right? So it doesn't matter how much money you have. Some people are still in this darkness in their mind, in their soul, in their spirit.
You cannot buy happiness.
Yeah.
Can't buy happiness. That's a very good, powerful saying. You cannot buy happiness. Happiness takes work. And just like the professor that said on TED Talks, we have to be conscious of that, and it takes work to go the upside, and to think positively. It takes work. It takes work to do that. Many of us would rather not do that. What are 3 things we can actually do with money anyway? We can spend it, right? We can save it, or we can give it away. Those are 3 things we can do with money. So, which of those do you think would have more importance if you hit the lottery and you have all of a sudden $10 million?
Give.
Which jar are you gonna hit first? I'd probably go to spending. I think I would. I'm gonna go to spending first. That's most important. When you hit a lottery or all of a sudden you get a bunch of money, you're gonna go spend it. That's our inclination. That's our
That's our goal.
It's kind of what we tend to do. That's a tendency that we do. Do we save? Well, yeah, we're probably going to save some, right? And are we going to give any of it away? That's going to determine your character. It's going to determine what it is. How much of it can you, first of all, give away? And to who are you going to give it away to? Who are you going to give it to? What types of things are important to you, to your soul? So yeah, those are basically the 3 things we can do. But wealth appears to be sometimes, like it appears like it's not fair to us. Well, how come she hit the lottery and I didn't? It seems not fair, because why? We're looking at this one lifetime. We're looking at this one existence. But reincarnation teaches us that we don't exist just this one time. We've existed many times before, and will continue to exist as many times as we need, until we start to get the idea, until we start learning and progressing spiritually. So if you want to repeat this lifetime again, then just sit back, relax, try to take the easiest road possible.
Don't do no harm, don't do no good.
Don't do any
You'll come back exactly the way you
just stay in the middle, correct? And just stay in the middle and don't do anything, like you said, very good. No harm, no good, just stay there, and you're going to be in the spirit world, going, what did I just do? Why did I let this whole existence pass? Well, let's go back and try it again. There's the mercy of God. There's His love. That's where it is. He gives us the opportunity to do it again, and again, and again. That's the love of God. Not, where's the love of God because I wasn't able to achieve this goal in this lifetime. Where's the love of God because He caused me all this pain? Not that. The love of God is right there where He has mercy on us. He loves us as His own children. And He says, hey, you know what? You didn't do too well this time around. Let's give it another shot. Let's do it again. Maybe we should change a few things to sort of help you, guide you to get to the goals that we need to get, so that your spirit can advance. So as civilization evolves, our needs evolve too. The things we need. things that were important 20 years ago are no longer relevant today. So does this become a source of new afflictions? In other words, are we adding more pain to our suffering already by having these new needs because civilization is improving? I mean, look, we've got technology, right? Is that making us worse people or better people? I think it's a double-edged sword, I think. It's making us good, but how we use it sometimes is making us bad. So it depends on how we use this. In my view, technology is a tool, but it's a tool for us. It's not to take over the world, but it's for us to use, for our improvement, for our benefit, for our progress. The problems we cause are in proportion to the artificial needs that we create for ourselves. We create these needs. What do we need? We need food, water, we need a place to live, we need transportation. We need things. Yeah, we're going to have to acquire those things. But at what point are the needs artificial to where we say we need, I need to have an account, a monthly account that allows me to watch certain shows on TV. I got to have it because I don't want to miss my shows. And now you're spending money on things that you artificially claim is really, really important to you. So we have to step back and look and understand, what truly do I need? What do I need to have in this lifetime? Now, you don't want to just be surviving and just barely getting by. That's not the case here, and that's not what I'm suggesting. What I'm suggesting is not to be stuck in wanting more and more and more and more until we get to that point where we have so much that we're not happy anymore. If we can restrict our desires and quit being envious of those who have more than we do, we would have less disappointments in our lives. Okay? So that's our desires are what trigger a lot of unhappiness, because we desire something, we want this, but is it something we really need to have? Okay. As civilization evolves, our needs evolve as well. Things that were important 20 years ago are no longer relevant today. I already read that, didn't I?
This is the last point.
I'm on the last one. The richest of men is he who has the fewest needs. Isn't that neat? The one who needs less is the richest one. I think that's very important. And so, we have to understand that we have to have our own self-worth. We have to feel like we're important too, to God, in the eyes of God, and in the eyes of those who love us. We have to feel that we matter too in this world. But if we are negative about ourselves, and if we feel like, well, that's no big deal, I'm not that important anyway, so, well, whatever, then we're putting ourselves down, and we're not really reflecting the light of God. We're not really giving people that opportunity of seeing what true happiness really can be. We have to sort of be that light, that reflection. We have to sort of be out there and show people what it is to live the happiest possible life. But that takes work, and it takes commitment. It takes daily evaluation of yourself. How many of us go to bed at night and sort of backtrack through our day? What did I do today? Did I do anything good? Did I do anything bad? We can practice that at night before we go to bed. Some of us meditate, which is a really good thing to do. And in your meditation, start going through your daily routine. What happened this morning? I got up, okay? And then you go through your day and ask yourself, did I do any good for anyone else? Did I do any good for someone that maybe needed my help? Did I neglect anything that I could have done? If we can ask ourselves these things daily at night before we go to bed, we start analyzing our actions and what we do. And we start understanding better our own way of thinking, right? Because if we just let our days go by one after another, and we start pursuing goals that are artificial, we start pursuing goals that aren't really going to benefit anyone but ourselves, then we start heading down that path of anger, of fear. What if I don't meet that goal? What if I don't get there? And then you have anxiety. That's one of the biggest problems we have in our country and in the world today is anxiety. Because we set these goals that are sort of artificial, and we do everything possible to try to reach those goals. At the expense of what? At the expense of our loved ones, our family, our friends? Do we spend time? Those who have children that are young children, maybe high school and younger, do we take the time to spend the time that our children need so that they grow up? Or do we neglect our children because we're pursuing our own goals? There are people who are very career driven, and they want their careers to really gain traction and to be really great at their jobs. And in the end, you look back and say, why is my son or why is my daughter acting, why are they acting that way? How come they act very negatively towards me? Or even your brother, your sister, your parents. We get too involved in our own lives. We get too involved in trying to reach these goals that we set, that we put on ourselves. And maybe a lot of these are very difficult to attain. And are they worth it? Is it even worth attaining that goal? I've known people that changed jobs completely. They just quit because no, that's taken way too much time of my life. And what really matters is my life. What really matters is my family. The money I make isn't gonna buy their love. It isn't gonna buy our relationship. So you know what? I quit. And I'm gonna go find another job somewhere. And I know that there are many, many people here who study in education and they get a certain degree or whatever on a certain profession, and they're doing something completely different. And I've spoken to a lot of people, well, what's your degree on? Oh, well, I studied mechanical engineering. Really? What are you doing? Well, I'm a librarian now. How did you do that? You have a mechanical engineering degree. Yeah, but as a librarian, I get to fulfill my life, be around books, and help children and help people. And that fulfills your life more than trying to just pursue a career to make money. And don't get me wrong, engineering is a really great career too. But if it's going to interfere with your relationships and your family, you have to ask yourself those questions. Is it worth it? Is it worth spending that time doing that? Okay. All right. We have kind of a short meeting today. We do have a prayer that we want to do, right? And I'd like to do a prayer for Erica, and we'll do that in just a minute. Let me just tell you this little short story. There was this person who was a motivational speaker at one time at one of the meetings that I went to at my school. And this motivational speaker was up here talking to us, and he pulled out a $20 bill. And he said, all right, he had it right here up in the air. I was going, okay, what is he doing? A $20 bill. He goes, all right, who wants this $20 bill? Well, all of us in the auditorium, we're talking about an auditorium full of people, right? We all raised our hand. Okay. He said, I'll give it to one of you, right here. But let me do something first. Hang on a second. He crumbled up the bill. He made it really tight or small, and then he held up this little tiny ball like that. $20. Then he goes, okay, raise your hand. Who still wants this $20 bill? And everybody raised their hand. Okay. All right. Let me do something else. He threw it to the ground really hard, stepped on it, and then he grinded it into the stage. He was just grinding that thing. And everybody was laughing, and some were curious and didn't know what was this guy doing? And he just kept at it for a little while the audience waited. Then he picked it up off the floor, and there's this flat, crumbled piece of ball that already all dirty with dirt and grime and everything. He picked it up and he says, okay, who still wants this $20 bill? Everybody still raised their hand. He said, we just learned a very valuable lesson. Of course, we didn't know what he was talking about. What do you mean a valuable lesson? You just crumbled up, you messed up a $20 bill, and now you're trying to give it to me. He said, look, this dollar bill is still worth $20. Because in life, you can get crumbled up, you can get thrown to the ground, you can get stepped on, you can get ground down into the dirt, in life, that can happen to us, either through our own fault or through unforeseen circumstances, right? Things can happen to us in life. He said, but no matter what happens to you, the people that you know that love you will still always love you. And God will always love you. No matter how dirty you are, no matter how, if you're not a nice, perfectly flat little dollar bill anymore, you're all wrinkled up and everything and dirty and grimy. No matter what happens to you, God is always going to love you. And so are the people who love you. They will still always love you, no matter what, because you are worth it. So that's one of those things we need to remember. Whenever we feel down and whenever we feel like life is just really throwing us these curveballs that we feel we cannot handle, God never gives us more than we can handle, right? God never gives us any more. We can handle everything that gets thrown at us. And if we get to that point where we start questioning, well, why? Why are we having to experience these things? Remember those words. Remember reincarnation. Also remember that we are here to grow spiritually. It is the spiritual growth that matters in this particular lifetime. So we focus on those things. All right? Any questions? Any additions? Okay. Well, I want to thank you guys for being here today. And at this time, we're going to go ahead and say a short prayer, and so we can help out Erica. Okay? Any other thing, Debbie?
Do we have a Naida prayer?
Narayana should. She says she'll bring it. She says she has it there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Got it.